Just recorded this whole video and realized that I missed two major pieces of news, so I will just mention those right now. We had the Army Vantage reaffirming a Palantir partnership for a third consecutive year. Not too much to read into here. It's great to see it continuing. And then we also had a new announcement of Palantir and DuPont Therapeutics, and that is actually a strategic partnership. Unfortunately, no Sham Sankar quote there. Not sure why there isn't a quote, but I always love reading those. Again, great company. It looks like they're really into biotech. So Palantir expanding its reach even farther. I will cover this in the future. But for now, let's kick it off into the video. I talk about the newest bear on the street, a potential T-Mobile contract and a connection there, and Alex Karp cross-country skiing to give us a holiday update. Enjoy. I've got a complete review of the Palantir news in the past week or so that we will be going through. Starting off with yesterday, we saw Palantir stock drop a bit. I'm not sure if it was directly on this. There's never any direct way to know, but we saw William Blair initiate coverage of the stock and noting that Palantir's EV to sales multiple compression to a range of 11 to 15 as sales plunge would translate to a stock price trading between $12 and $16 in 2022. That is the analysis. Basically, this is the analyst right here. Thanks to Chad Palantir. Go follow him on Twitter. You will see that this analyst success rate on tip ranks is actually 30%. So losing money 70% of the time, according to this analyst's picks. An average return of negative 10%. So we'll scroll down. We'll actually see the real tip ranks account came out. 26,000 followers responded to Chad Palantir and compared. If you know anything about Tesla, you will have heard of the infamous analyst Gordon Johnson. Compared the two, this guy is actually significantly worse than Gordon Johnson, not just in the success rate, but also in the average return. So that's pretty funny, but of course I want to take this a step further. What can we learn about this through Bloomberg? Unfortunately, not too much, because I don't have access. For some reason, I'm not authorized for any of these specific research reports, so I'm not able to view. Here we have William Blair, this analyst, initiating the underperform yesterday. They don't cite a specific target price, which I find pretty interesting, a nice way to cover yourself by not actually giving a price. If we do actually look at the rank, it ranks recommendations produced by the best relative returns based on the performance of all securities they covered over the past year. So we're going to click that once, and actually this William Blair is actually going to fall way below. Actually, here we go, rank. Now I've got it in the right order. These actually have rankings, these other ones don't. So I would assume the rest that don't have rankings are just unranked. But anyway, there you have it. We have three much more reputable firms with a target of $40, target of underweight, no price target, and then a target of $24. If you aggregate everything, once again, last price, we're sitting around above closer to $19 now, about mid-18s, and we have a return potential, if you aggregate all of these, even with the new initiations, of 27%, I should say, 27% for the 1 year price targets. Again, there's the positive price spread. That's not what I'm going to spend this whole video talking about. Wanted to just mention it. A Gordon Johnson-esque character coming onto the Palantir scene. Nothing better, nothing better for entertainment. Here we have Alex Karp giving his holiday greetings December 16th. For anyone unaware, this is Karp, I would guess, cross-country skiing, one of his favorite activities as far as I have heard. And if you will recall, if you are a long-term Palantir investor in the time that it has been a public company, you will know that this is how he actually opened the Investor Day presentation, coming in on cross-country skis. So good to see him back at it again. This was just a short 3-minute video. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I will play you this small part where he actually just describes how the business is doing, what he's thinking about the business, and more so the actual use cases. Now, people were saying in my last couple of videos, whichever one I was talking about with the marketing, where Palantir was talking about the specific capabilities of its platform, but not the use cases. So here are some use cases from the CEO himself about what he thinks about Palantir.
And we at Palantir are grateful that we've been able to play our role in helping ameliorate some of the greatest difficulties of the last century, including our efforts to disseminate the vaccine, PPE, globally, the lives that were saved with the help of our government partners, also helping to revitalize commercial companies all over the globe, our ability to help startups transform themselves before they're crushed by the status quo. And in general, the fact that Palantir, although we're 2 decades old, seems to me to be getting younger and younger, faster and faster. Our product development is faster, our ability to move across jurisdictions, our ability to provide value. Palantir is a company that looks for the most complicated problems and solves them. We are an and, not an or company. Civil liberties and data protection. Enterprise becoming more valuable and more efficient. Vaccines distributed and data protected.
So I thought that was great. Karp said at the end, towards the end here, he's probably signing off for the rest of the year. He doesn't know if he's going to make any more public appearances, so I think it's safe to say at this point that we will see him again next year in 2022 at this point. So I recommend watching the full thing. I'll leave the link in the description if you have not already done so. Same thing with this video. We've got another video, and this is Chapter X Palantir. Now, what does that mean? Well, this is one of the Foundry for Builders companies, so always good to get some insight. This was a December 17th video. Always good to get some insight on what these startup companies are actually using Palantir for, how they're leveraging it, and of course what they're thinking about Foundry. Wouldn't put too much weight into it because this is a Palantir video, so they wouldn't publish something that is in a negative light. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. Hopefully it is completely representative because there is a lot of positivity here, but definitely just one angle of many. So wanted to just cover the stock here. We're sitting at, if I reload this, around 1877 plus 4.5%. And what does that mean? Well, basically in the last few days, it hasn't meant anything. We were down on Monday, back up today. Palantir seems to be in a bit of a range here, which I actually think is a pretty good thing. Just from someone watching the stock, it's good that Palantir has sort of found a bit of a range here. Sure, it could go lower. It could definitely head back up, but I think this was almost entirely driven by the macro market getting crushed, especially the growth stocks, and I still think Palantir is about performing as well as ARK's Innovation. I haven't checked on that recently, but about the same, if not slightly better. But we do have a lot of work to do to get back up to the range that Palantir has been in before, in the 20s. Not a bad day as we see some stocks bouncing back from fears. So now I want to talk about something else. We've seen, I just want to mention this first, seen mentions of Palantir potentially working with AT&T. Now, where does that come from? There have been a lot of rumors stemming from LinkedIn, actual job applications, which seems to have actually been the most accurate place of finding potential and future actual partnerships for Palantir with any company. So here's AT&T, senior data analyst. You need to have experience with Palantir. So that's basically what this is an ongoing theory from early 2021 that Palantir is working with AT&T. We don't know if they are. We have no confirmation, but it is very highly likely given there is so much evidence behind it. Anyway, what I'm mentioning this for is now that we have another inclination, thanks to, of course, Chris Patel once again on Twitter, sending me a message that Palantir could now be working with T-Mobile. There is a bit of a link here. So having two of the major carriers would be huge, and it really indicates that if you get someone in a given industry using the product, the stickiness means that the other competitors, once they catch on, really would need to use Palantir if it becomes a competitive advantage. Now, granted, that could just be two separate thoughts, and if AT&T is trying to keep this private, they may not have actually shared that. T-Mobile may be finding this of their own accord. So we have this telecom company raising its stake in T-Mobile in a SoftBank swap deal by 50% ownership because this company is actually a partner for Palantir in Europe. Now, T-Mobile overall has about 105 million customers. This is huge. Now, that not only is that just a big number, but what if we heard from Palantir about a potential consumer product? Well, what we've heard is that Palantir doesn't want to talk about it today just yet. What they want to talk about, rather, is working with these huge companies that have all these customers and these consumers that they can build a product for, deploy it, and all of a sudden that is the synthetic B2C product. This could be a huge contract for Palantir. And it's also worth noting, thanks to Chris again for mentioning this, of course, everyone probably knows by now that T-Mobile and Sprint have officially merged after a lot of work there. So what would this mean for Palantir? So how could Palantir actually help with this? Well, we have Palantir Hyper Auto, some recently announced software from Palantir. It's all about speed and automation of data. Now, what would be important here? Well, for that merger of integrating data of two ginormous companies takes forever. And how do you sort of sync that up and connect it and make sure it's all good, nothing gets corrupted, and it's actually in sync, as I said, how much data the both of them have, and combining different data sets. This is right up Palantir's alley. CRMs, ERPs, the whole sort. Not necessarily supply chain stuff, but I guess that could be thrown in there. So it's not even the merger itself that has taken so long to get approved, anti-competitive stuff, but it's even the work after the merger has been approved, such as integrating all of these data platforms that have existed for both independent companies, bringing them together. This can take years. So how could Palantir step in if they're already potentially working with T-Mobile? If the company working with T-Mobile in Europe is actually already a partner, and this is a telecom company. So how could this be done? Well, Palantir Hyper Auto is basically the solution. We saw this impact study, we looked at it before. Speed to savings with ERP data, a very different situation. This is exactly what Palantir is made to do, and Hyper Auto is basically the way of getting it done. You have two disparate data sources, those being T-Mobile and Sprint. How do you combine them? Well, you need software to do it. And if Palantir already has a foothold and is working with T-Mobile, they will be the first place to go. So I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you to Chris Patel. Once again, I think that is a very interesting line of thought. We'll have to see how it transforms into the future, if there is any confirmation of that, and if we ever get to hear actually if Palantir is working with AT&T. So go ahead and watch these other Palantir videos if you have not done so already, and until next time.